Hey guys, I thought I'd just share a bit of code today. I've been absent from the communities recently just due to life getting in the way and being too busy with other things. But I thought I'd like to just release this just before Christmas, just to give you guys something to play with. It's about accessibility. Bricks have made a lot of advances in accessibility of their elements in recent releases. Previously, things like accordions, tabs, etc., were just not really considered for accessibility, but they have done a lot of work to make them improve. And I'm going to show you some additional improvements that I think you can make. So I'm looking at the top left here where I've got an accordion, which is a standard bricks nestable accordion. So if we go into our editor here, this is the standard bricks nestable accordion. And if I press my tab key, I get to the first element. Tab key, I get to the second element. If I use the arrow up or arrow down key, nothing happens. Okay. If I use the space key, it expands and contracts. Enter, it expands and contracts. So a couple of issues here for me is, firstly, the arrow keys do nothing. Also, the end and home keys do nothing. If we look at this W3 org patterns for an accordion, the enter and space, they've definitely taken into account and that's working. Tab definitely work. It moves to the next focusable element. And the shift tab works. These here, the down arrow, up arrow, home and end are not implemented at all. It does say here in the guide here that that's optional, but I think you might as well make them available if it's possible. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to create a thing called a focus trap, which does exactly that. Okay, so that's the first thing I was going to look at. The other thing is with the, if we look at the DOM for this, by default, our headers, which are the clickable parts, are a div with a role of button. I don't know why they just didn't make them a button. Just makes more sense for it to be a button to me. There may be a reason for this that I'm not understanding or seeing, but why put a div there and make that div a button rather than just make it a button? So you can change that just by going into each of these items here and changing those to make them a custom link and then make it a button. You can go and change all those if you want to. And I think it's probably a better way to do it, but there may be reasons that they've done it the other way. Anyway, so from an accessibility point of view, I think if you tab to that and you use your arrow up and down, it should go to the next one and next to the previous. If you press N, it should go to the last one. You press home, it should go to the first one. Okay, so we're going to fix that when we look at the focus trap that we created in the exact same accordion, just with one extra class on it and some JavaScript to make that what I think is better accessibility. Now, if we go to the tab component, which is the default bricks tab component, so this nestable tabs, all I've done is added that to the DOM, and I think it works beautifully. So if we use our arrow keys on the tab, see it goes, cycles. I'm going arrow to the right, it keeps moving to the right and then cycling around. Go to the left, it does the same. If I press home, it goes to the first one. If I press end, it goes to the last one. So the tab element is doing what I think the accordion element should do, but it's doing that natively. So we don't need to do anything with the tabs now. Never used to do that, but it does now. So that's an enhancement that they've done in recent updates to Bricks Builder. Okay, so let's have a look at my version of the accordion. So if we go from our last tab here, press tab there, it goes to the content, which is great. Press tab again, it's going to the first item, and I've got it set to open automatically, which is a option that I've created. So when we looked at the first one here, we click on that and it just focuses. You've got to press the enter or the space for it to work. With my focus trap, I've got it set to open it automatically, and you've got it as an option. Press my arrow down key, it goes to the next one, arrow down, arrow down again, and it cycles around to the top. Arrow up, it cycles to the bottom. Press home, it goes to the first. Press end, it goes to the last. And after the last one, when we press tab, it moves on to the next focusable element. I think that makes more sense with what this document here is saying and what it should be doing. Again, they are optional, but I think it just makes sense. They've done that with the tabs. I mean, the tabs work exactly the way what I'm changing with this accordion does. Okay, so that's the accordion. So we're going to do that. Now we're using exactly the same JavaScript, exactly the same logic for a set of inputs, which I've made a radio set. So if we look at the builder here, all I've done there is use tab elements. I've just used the div element and I've turned that into a field set, created a legend for my title up here. Each of these is a label which wraps a radio, which is the input, and then that wraps a span, should be a span, not a P. Why can't I select spans? There should be a span there. We'll fix that all up later. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So basically, I've used bricks elements to create a radio list. And let's actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the field set here. I'm going to take my, actually I've already done it, take off the focus trap and have a look at what it does. So if we have a look at this here, so we got the last one there. If I tab to the option 1, it just goes to option 1. If I arrow down, it goes to option 2 and selects it. This is default. Okay, so why didn't it select the first one there? So if I go to option 3, for example, I come back to here, and I press tab, it goes to option 3, so it's the latest one that's selected. Okay, press arrow up, and it's cycling between the inputs, and it goes to the, if it's on the first one, I press arrow up, it goes to the last one. Arrow down does the same thing in reverse. So this works in the same way as the tabs do natively. What it doesn't do is it doesn't have a home and it doesn't have an end. So this again is operating slightly differently to the tab element. And this is not a bricks element. This is a one we've created using basic bricks div elements. So to turn this into the same logic that we've used with our accordion here, all I have to do is add a class to that field set, which is my, what do I call it, focus. Focus trap, WP focus trap, I've called it. So I'm going to save that from there, refresh here. Okay. Now, if I tab to my focusable radio, it automatically selects option 1. So what it's doing is it's clicking the option when it selects it. If I press the end key, it goes to the last one. I press the home key, it goes to the first one. And my arrow up goes cycling around, arrow down cycles the other way. So this is behaving in the same way as the native tabs when you use the arrow keys, cycles around, same as on here. If I go by tabs, if I press the end key, it goes to the last one, home key, it goes to the first one. Again, this is the native bricks element doing that. On my options here, if I press the end key, now it goes to the last one, home key, it goes to the first one, and my arrows keys work. So it's the same JavaScript. This is an accordion. This is a radio set that we've created, radio options set that we've created just using bricks div elements. Okay, so that is what this is all about. Now, how it works. So firstly, if we look at the, I'm going to go back to the accordion here. What we've done, we've basically added a class called WPE focus trap. And then on that class, we've added on that element, I've added some attributes. The first one is my data focusable item selector. And this is the class or ID, it should be a class. So my class is .accordion title wrapper. If we look at the accordions, we can see that our button roll here is an accordion title wrapper. So each one of these is our clickable, focusable item. So we just need to get that class name there, and we put that on our data attribute here as our value. So data focusable item selector, put the class there, and that is done. All right, now that works. Now the next attribute is this click on focus. If I put data, click on focus there, it will click it on focus. So I'm going to take that, I'm actually going to put a Z on the end of that so it doesn't exist. I'll show you what the difference is. So if I now refresh, and let's say we go to the last tab here, press the tab key. See, it's now focused, but it didn't click. If I use my arrow, it's now focused, but it didn't click. It still cycles around, still goes to the end, still goes to the home, which is not what the Bricks native element does. So that still works, but it doesn't click. You still have to use your space or your enter key to open or close it. So that is as simple as that. If we want it to click as soon as it focuses, then we just add data, click on focus. If we don't want it to click, we don't add that attribute, or you can leave it there as a default and just add something to the end of it so it doesn't work, and then take it off when you want it to work. Okay. All right, so that is the basics of what we do here. On the field set, I've done the same thing, added my data WPE focus trap, my WPE focus trap class. I've got my focusable item selector. I've created a BEM class with focusable radio __ radio. So that's the radio labels here. So that label there. So you can see that is my BEM label for that. If we get back to here. And then I've got data click on focus there as well. And again, if I take that off, if I make that a Z on the end there, hit save, refresh, this one here. If I tab there now, it doesn't click it. Arrow there, it doesn't click it. Okay. So if I press the space bar, it's clicked. Go to the next one, press space, it's clicked. So the option is really, really simple to either do it or don't do it. So I'm going to put that back on and show you the difference. So I've got data click on focus, refresh. Okay, now if I press tab, it selects my option 1. Press the arrow down, it selects option 2. So that's the difference. It'll either click it to select it, or it won't click it to select it. All right, so that is it. Now the JavaScript, all I've done in here, I've got a code block here. I've got my JavaScript sitting in the code block here. I've got my execute code turned on, and I can't get it to it. Yes, I can. And I render without wrapper because I don't need a wrapper around this script because I'm not styling it, so I don't need a wrapper. That's it. So I will share this code so you can use it. I'll do a really, really quick run through here. I'm not going to go into too much JavaScript here, but I use my standard methodology to make sure that the script only runs once. So what I do is I create a window object. If the window object exists, just assign it to itself. Otherwise, create a new window object for WPE with a single property called scripts, which is an empty array. So that there means that then I give it a script name, and then down the bottom here, when the document is loaded, we want to move to the end of the thread. I just find it sometimes it's easier to do that. So we move to the next click, basically, or the next tick, as some frameworks call it. And basically all we're doing, if our script has not been initialized, so we have not on our WPE scripts object, if we don't have a script there, then we're going to create a new instance of our class up here on that script name. So what that's going to do is that means that this will only ever create one instance of that class, which means that we can put this code on the DOM 100 times if we wanted to. Don't recommend it, but you could, and it's only going to run once. So it's a really good way of doing that, because sometimes you might put this into a template or a component, and then you forget to move this to your external code manager, and you might end up with 2 or 3 copies of the same code on the DOM. You don't want that same code running more than once. You just want it to run them once, and that's it. And that's what this does here. All right, so that's that part of it there. We then have some just debugging. So if we have our debugging set to true, then we can do some debugging using debug log. So for example, down here, I've got this.debug log item selector, and it basically is pulling that, focusable item selector. So let's actually just quickly go back to the, so we go back to our field set here and data attributes. So we've got data, focusable item selector, and this is all separated with a dash. Okay, when you access that in JavaScript, you use data set and you use camel case and take out the minus or dash. So this becomes focusable, capital I for item, capital S for selector. That is actually accessing this data attribute here. All right, so once we get that I'm just debugging that to the console so we can make sure that we've got everything set correctly. When we're finished with our debugging, we just set our debug to false here, and we don't get anything echoed out to the console. So it's just a simple way rather than having to uncomment all of this debugging. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to find all of our items. So that is, in this case, it is the accordion, what are they, titles? Let me go back to here, what do they call it? The accordion title wrapper. So we want an array of all of those. So that's our items. Okay, and then again, debug logging just to make sure we've actually targeted correctly so we know we've got the correct items. Okay, and then we're going to, actually I'm not using that, that's a hangover from something else I was doing. This here is if the block element, which is my, so it's the total block, the focus trap block, if we have data click on focus, so looking over here, if we have data click on focus as an attribute, what we want to do is we want to listen to a focus in event, and if the element has the click, then we want to focus that by using the click. So only if it's got this attribute, we're going to click it after it's focused. Okay, so that is simple as that. Okay, now the next bit is we're going to listen for our key down on our block. So the key down is on the entire block. So in this case up here, it's the accordion. So it's going to listen to the whole accordion block for any key down on any element underneath the that structure there. So we don't need to do it on every single item, just on the I guess the wrapper block around that. So we listen for the key down. We're going to find our current index of the item. So in this case, we've got 4 items here. So we want to know which index is focused. And we do that by actually just heading back up here. When we got our items, we created an array from that query selector. And the reason for that is that the query selector all will return a DOM node list, which you can't use as an array. So we're going to convert that into an array by using array from. And down here, we can use the array function of find index. So what we're doing is we're basically looking for the document's current active element. So if we head over to here and I press the tab key, this element is the current active element. Press the tab key, that is the current active element on the document. So what it's going to do is it's going to get the current active element, it's going to get the item, so whichever item it is from our array, and it's going to find the index of that item in that array if these two equal. So if our item that we've got in the array and the currently active item on the DOM are the same, then we're going to return that index to our current index of selected, and that is pretty much how we determine which item it is to act on. If it returns a -1, it means that the current active element does not exist in our list of items. Then we're just going to return. We're not going to do anything here because this is not for us. All right. We're then going to go through some logic and look at our key, our event key, arrow up, arrow down, home, and end. We're going to apply some maths to that. So we want to go backwards, forwards, looping around at the end, looping around at the beginning. If it's home, we want to set our index to 0. If it's end, we want to set our index to the last element in the array. 0 is 0. So arrays in JavaScript are zero based. The length is not. So an array of 1 has a number of 1, but the first item is 0. So we take the length minus 1. Okay, and that means it's our first index. So that's going to go to the last item, I should say. Right, once we've got our new index based on which key we pressed, we call our focus tab function. Our focus tab, again, we're doing some debug logging, iterate through all of the items and set the ARIA selected to false. I'm not sure if this is correct or not yet. I assume it is because it's not selected. If our current iteration is the same as the index, the new index we created from our keys, pressing keys, then we want to focus that tab, and we're going to set the ARIA attribute of ARIA selected to true. So that's pretty straightforward. This is code that took me probably 20 minutes to come up with, so there may be some things in here that could be improved, but that's where I've got to. So I'm going to put this up on a gist so you guys can play with it, and I hope that helps you with improving the accessibility of some of your elements, even if they're not Bricks native elements. If they're elements you've created, this focus trap can be used to keep focus. And really what I want to do is I want to try and implement whatever the recommendations are in these patterns here. So this is under w3.org, WAI, ARIA, APG, patterns, accordion. So you can grab that from this video anyway. And that there will give you a list of what their recommendations are for these. So for example, with a, let's look at a checkbox. What should a checkbox look like? How should the buttons work? Where are we? Where's our example? So we click on an example, to state. Okay, it will talk in here about the keyboard support. What should the keys do? Okay, and there's all the detail, a bunch of extra detail on how that should work. So these patterns are fantastic for, thinking about whether what you're doing with accessibility is right or wrong. Sometimes there's this bit of interpretation, but overall it's pretty easy to understand. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. I will share this code, and hopefully that is something that you guys can use in your day-to-day dev. I'll leave it there. Thanks, guys.